Welcome to the Vintage Iron Project. Let's go.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Vintage Iron Project. We came all the way to Texas today to show you the most impressive collection of motocross bikes in the country. The Holigan collection is very, very private, very exclusive, but we've been granted access to show you everything he's got, and it's a lot. They say everything's bigger in Texas, and this certainly is. Welcome to the Vintage Iron Project. Today we have a very special guest, Blake Wharton, here to take a look at these tremendous Suzukis that are part of the Holigan collection. Come on in, Blake.
How's it going?
Coming?
Good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you. So we have a bunch of Suzukis. I know you have a rich Suzuki history.
That's right.
Why don't we start down on the old end down here?
95, right?
Yep. You were how old?
I was 4. So
you were probably not riding one.
Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about this era, but no, I did go to some Supercrosses at a young age, so I do remember seeing this style of bike. Yeah.
Sure. So this was Ferry's bike, and,
Yeah.
and according to Tim, this was his favorite all-time 125. So it was the fastest 125 that he had ever had.
Fascinating.
He won a national that year and then got hurt, didn't get to race anymore. It's notoriously good.
Notoriously good. Well, I'd like to check it out at some point, but I'm sure these don't see much daylight on the track anymore.
Not anymore, but you weren't here then.
Yeah.
So, and then moving on, we've got Ferry's championship bike from the East Coast in '97.
You can't miss the E.
That's right.
It's recognizable anywhere.
And check the bottom triple clamps, 3-bolter.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of hardware.
That's a lot of bolt action, this too.
Yep, and the big conventional fork.
Very interesting with Suzuki. Of course, you had the different color back then. I'm not sure when they made that change to more of the light modern, but that's definitely something I associate with stuff from that era.
Sure. And then moving on, we got Brock Heffler's bike. He won, I think, 3 races that year against RV and Ryan Dungey.
A lot of good guys. I came up with in the Coalgrass Suzuki era. So Millsap and Hepler were the older guys at that time, and they had gone to the next level with Roger DeCoster at that time. So we did a lot of watching on these guys, and yeah. So I remember this era pretty well.
So there was a period there where you won a Supercross at Indy.
That's correct. Yeah, 2012.
Yeah. And when you did that, they hearkened that back to the era of when Ferry was winning, and that was kind of Suzuki's dominance then. How did you feel like your bikes stacked up against competition?
Well, even in 2012, I would say the RM started to become a little bit outdated compared to the KTM, the Kawasaki. It was still good, and of course, now it's much different. It's 10 years has gone by, so there's been a lot of advancements with the bikes. But the bikes we had were really good. Probably some of the best Suzukis that have been around the last 15 years.
Right.
But it was definitely the end of an era, because I want to say it was either me or it's Jason who won one of the Supercrosses in 12 or 13, and that was the last one for a long time until now, with, of course, Roxon making Suzuki famous again and bringing it back to the map. But of course, yeah, there's a big history here with Suzuki, and I've done some history on it myself, and the winning records of Suzuki in amateur racing, the success they had there. And for a long time, it wasn't translated to the pros. That was kind of like the focus on a story I did. It was like all these great riders, all of this talent, and then it got to the you get to the pros, and it kind of got convoluted a little bit. But Suzuki is synonymous with racing, for me, and one of the Japanese brands that I have a soft spot with.
Yeah. How many different brands did you ride for?
Well, a lot, in the grand scheme of it, but in my professional time, it was mostly Honda and Suzuki. But we had 3 years in amateur racing on Suzuki as well.
Right.
With Coalgrass, yeah.
Yeah. So Honda versus Suzuki, what was the plus and minuses?
Well, I actually like Suzuki. And even then, it was like I said, they were a little bit outdated, and everyone is a diehard Honda fan. I mean, you know, that's pretty common. You see that. You either bleed red or you don't. For myself personally, though, we just had a soft spot for Suzuki, and, you know, it was a little bit of the underdog, you know, at that time, more so now. But chassis-wise, the chassis was great in 2012, 2013.
They always turn good, huh?
They always turn good, yeah. And the bike was fast. It definitely wasn't slow, but it may have been a little bit underpowered at that time. But still one of the best bikes. I think even you could compare those 2012s to now, and they'd still be very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the team you were?
It was
running for?
Rockstar Energy Suzuki, and it was Twisted Development that was doing the motors. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were solid, and you know, we worked with Suzuki. The team worked directly with Suzuki, but Suzuki was making some changes at that time, so you saw a little bit less support than you would have seen back in, you know, DeCoster's era, of course, the Hepler-Millsap time.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to go to Japan and ride any of their experimental stuff?
No, I never got to go to Japan, but that would have been something that I would have liked to do for sure. We did so much racing during the season, it was hard to find time to break away and go do an off-season event. But maybe it's still possible. Yeah. So I still know some guys at Suzuki and still doing motorcycle projects, kind of like this. So it would be great to get over there.
Yeah. No, you're considered to be in the industry still. So I think you probably remember this one.
No introductions needed here. Yeah, the seat says it all. Maybe if I can just touch it, I'll get a little faster, a little bit better of a jumper.
You'll be able to do a backflip.
Yeah, that's true. No, this bike is awesome. Like you said, this was Travis Pastrana's championship in the outdoors, and surprisingly only one, but he was always fast, or only one championship, if you will, but he was always fast, and we grew up watching him, the Revelation 999 or 199 stuff, you know, with his movies, and then of course he had to make a change to KTM recently, I guess, because parts were getting a little bit low, but you know, Travis was it. I remember in 2002 and 2003 when he was on the 250 with Kevin Windham, Sobe Suzuki. That was a renowned era, so we just, you know, we love that. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, everything he does, he's successful at.
Everything he does, he's fast, and everything he does, he's successful at. So he did a lot for Suzuki, and yeah, I'd love to see the brand, you know, come back and see some progression with the bike, and you know, being more involved with motocross, supercross.
Like take the Kickstarter off.
That would be a good one. We can just take it off and just bump start it. I mean, that'll look, you know, maybe better. One of the guys, it was funny, one of the guys was watching Kenny in practice. And he fell somewhere, and he was kicking on his bike for like 5 minutes. And he was struggling with his gear shifter. I thought, we need to watch this cameraman. He may be on a Honda at the practice track. I'm pretty sure. They may have paid him off, but no, Suzuki's awesome. Yeah.
And I don't know how far back your memory of Suzuki history is, but I mean, obviously Roger DeCoster. I mean, he and Joel Rivera started the whole Suzuki dynasty. In motocross, and
I know he's usually synonymous with the Suzuki, you know, with Suzuki, and then of course in my time it was just he was the man that was running Suzuki for a long time. And of course some big success when he was there. So, you know, Suzuki's capable. We've seen it. They can do it. And they've definitely been, you know, on the smaller end of the Japanese brands, but they've done a lot of winning. So proportionately, Suzuki has a really good track record. It's just, you know, when the recession happened, I want to say in 2008, they took a big dip, as you know, in motorcycle sales. So they didn't really recover from that point. Hey, going forward, we'll see. Hopefully they can pull something out.
Now was Roger at Suzuki when you were riding that?
So yes, Roger was at Suzuki during that time. But Suzuki, or I guess amateur racing then, you didn't have the go pro with the team in the amateur and then like go straight to the professional rig. You know, Colgrass had a really, really good amateur racing team program. It was the cream of the crop. I guess it was the most coveted team to be on when you were young. But he didn't have full jurisdiction over the pro team. So it made a bit of a challenge for him to get his guys there. Now, like Hepler and Millsap, of course, went from his amateur racing team to Roger DeCoster's pro team. And then Nico Izzy did as well. But so we didn't get to work with Roger. He had already left at the time that I turned pro.
That's what I was wondering.
And that was Suzuki's really their only weak spot, or chink in the armor, if you will, at that time. They just didn't have that next level available. So guys like me, Throttle and Tomac and all of them could have gone straight in.
Yep.
And that's where they lost a lot of guys. And Cole has even talked about that. He lost Tomac that way because Geico had that set up.
Right.
And they were really early on one of the first teams to start doing that. And so, of course, now you look at it, you see guys come up the full way with Star, Yamaha, or Kawasaki.
Right.
So it's very common now, but back then it wasn't. So you had to earn your keep. You had to impress Roger. You had to show up and make it happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So in your career, who is the most influential guy that you would credit?
On Suzuki's or in general?
No, just in your career. I mean, whether it's an influence or whether it's somebody that mentored you or
that's a good question. Some of the mentors that I had were like Sebastian Tortelli, speaking of Suzuki, and he was there in the time when they were developing the 450, and that was really one of his main jobs, and so I've talked to him about that a good bit. Of course, Rick Johnson was another one that I worked with, got the chance to work with, coming up in amateur racing, and then of course a little bit in the pros. So big fan of Rick, but man, there's been a lot of good guys that we've had a chance to, get to know and to work with. And, I grew up on the Gary Semick stuff. So speaking of vintage moto, Gary Semick was the guy. So we grew up watching the VHSs of Gary Semick, just hours and hours and hours worth, before the social media. So you had to, learn that way. But no, there's been a lot of guys that have been a part of my program over the years. Steve Lamson was one of my favorites. Not necessarily a Suzuki guy or known to be a Suzuki guy, but he was always just a good guy. So, yeah.
Do you have a Rick Johnson story you want to tell us?
Yeah, I got a Rick Johnson story for you. I'm sure everyone has a Rick Johnson story. But one of the things, when Rick Johnson came to our house, when we were on Suzuki's back in, I want to say 05, he wanted to do some training, and Rick Johnson's training was a little bit different. So, of course, we did the riding portion, which was good. And Rick kept it fun, too. He really impressed upon us, or tried to, as much as amateur racing people listen, not to override, not to overtrain, not to burn out, to stay hungry. But one of his drills for mental toughness was to get us in our shirts and make us run, and he would shoot us with paintballs. But he was. So it made us tough, and we say, we need to embrace the pain. So we're out here on our corner track, and Rick's just tearing us up. Yeah.
I'll tell you a Rick Johnson story.
Okay, let's hear it.
2 months ago, I'm using him as a riding coach.
Okay.
At 66 years old, right? Like
It's never too late.
Learn something new. And there's a particular jump, and I wasn't clearing it over and over. You just have to go faster. That was his way to resolve the issue.
Sure.
Just go faster. And now he trains with a microphone in your ear.
Okay.
It's not two-way. It's one way. Rick's way. It comes in while you're riding. He asked me to make sure that I wasn't going to be too distracted. And I'm like, no, I can listen to you while I'm riding. And so I came around, and he's like, no, a little more gas next time. I came around, and a little more gas, not enough gas, a little more gas. And pretty soon he started calling me names that you wouldn't use in church.
Sure. Right.
And then I overjumped it.
But you did clear it, though.
Oh, yeah.
And that's all he was worried about.
Then I started calling him the same names he just called me.
But he couldn't hear you, though.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's my Rick Johnson story.
Rick has his way of teaching, but he's one of the best for sure from what I'd seen.
He's just a great guy.
He's a good guy, and I always enjoy our chats and our one-way conversations, I guess.
So what are you doing these days?
Well, these days a little bit of everything, but I do have a 9 to 5, working with a family business. But outside of that, we have motorcycle projects that we're doing. Every now and then I'll do a Racer X story. I'm still passionate about going overseas to different parts of the world, seeing motocross in a more unseen light, I guess, if you will. Motocross in like the least likely of places, and we're looking to get out and to expand a bit more because, of course, there's more than just dirt bikes as much as we love them. There's adventure riding now, and there's, of course, street riding. Right. But right now, the thing that we have on our plate is the XR200 event that we've been exploring. Of course, I don't need to introduce you to the concept. We probably learned it from you guys. But we have King of Daytona Pros versus Joes. Right. And it's a race March 7th at Daytona on the Vintage Day. Right. XR200s. So we're hoping for a good turnout. 12 to 15 guys would be awesome for the first year. It takes a while to get something like this off the ground, but we've had a lot of good interest.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Now you'll be surprised, they'll come out of the woodwork.
Yeah, and I know now if I need a $30,000 XR, I know I can get it, right?
Or rent it.
Yeah, and I got a Suzuki one here too. So I was looking for bikes before, I told you, so I know where they're at now.
So I'll challenge you guys, everybody from Daytona, come out to California May 12th.
And this is for the
12th and 13th. Yeah.
which event is this?
It's going to be the third year of the revival. I don't know if you've heard. It's the revival of motocross.
Nice.
And we have lots of pros that come out. Not everybody races.
Sure.
But they're all there to participate. And what we're basically trying to do is recreate the way motocross was, because it used to be huge.
Yeah.
Much bigger sport than it is today.
Wow.
And so we have races. We have all sorts of other activities going on. And one of them is the XR200 race.
Well, sign us up, and we'd definitely like to be involved. You know, I'm trying to stay in the sport as much as possible now.
Yeah.
You know, when you're retired, so you got to do these different events, and you know, but no, it sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make it to yours. You make it to mine.
Sounds good.
All
That's
right.
a deal.
Thanks for coming out today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.